The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is out and is the prequel to the Hunger Games movies that starred Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss. Now, there are a lot of ups and downs in this movie. Some good, a little bad, and we're gonna go through it all, so let's do this.
So, what are we gonna watch?
Are we gonna watch porn?
Welcome back to Pop Rages, I'm Danny Alex. At the end of my review, I'll give you my rating out of 10, so stick around. I'd love to hear yours as well. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is directed by Francis Lawrence, who took over the Hunger Games franchise with Catching Fire 10 years ago. The script was written by Assassin's Creed writer Michael Leslie and Force Awakens writer Michael Arndt. It takes place roughly about 60 years before Katniss Everdeen and focuses on young Coriolanus Snow, who was of course played by Donald Sutherland. In this movie, he's a young ambitious man and a government recruit in Panem, with the hopes of lifting his standing in life through politics. He's played by Tom Blyth, who does an excellent job in the role. The first part of this movie is pretty much his origin story, as we see him rise through the ranks of government and act as a mentor to Lucy Gray Baird, played by Rachel Zegler, who inspires him to take the Hunger Games into a new direction. Now, I know there's an elephant in the room here that just cannot be ignored. A lot of people are going to be turned off by Rachel Zegler's appearance in this movie because of the Snow White controversy and how it all played out. I get it, I do.
It's Hollywood, baby.
It didn't help her out on any of the movie projects that she's associated with. Her acting performance in this movie doesn't really stand out in any way, but it's impossible to deny that she does have a vocal talent that allows her to shine in places and was most likely the reason she got the role.
You could take my paw, but his name's a mystery.
Now, I'm not a big fan of musicals or movies that go too deep into the song and dance routine. Except for a few movies such as The Greatest Showman, maybe a few others. It's a movie format that's never been a particular favorite of mine. And I'd be more than happy if it was toned down in Songbirds and Snakes. But hey, to each their own. It's a personal preference. Something else that is worthy of mention is the bland chemistry between Zegler and Blyth. It feels off, clunky, and never connects or feels convincing. I feel like the relationship tries to flourish way too late in the movie, and you never really care as to whether it even happens or not. Taking over for Donald Sutherland as a young Coriolanus Snow is Tom Blyth. He gets a chance to reinvent the character as a young man, who is a far cry from the President Snow that we know in the Katniss movies. Tom Blyth is an ideal casting choice, as he did a great job in giving us glimpses of the inner turmoil and pain that ultimately produces the man that is the older and ruthless President Snow. There is a fantastic supporting cast, and they all added to the genuine feel of the movie. Peter Dinklage was the perfect Casca Highbottom. Viola Davis plays Volumnia Gall, head game maker and mad scientist, for lack of a better word. She came across perhaps too cartoony at times, but ultimately it fit well within the context of the character. And then there's Jason Schwartzman as Lucky Flickerman, the TV host of the Hunger Games. He gives a performance that livens up the move without losing the eerie tone that overhangs the entire movie and theme. There were three distinct parts in the movie. The first one being the origin of President Snow, as he starts off as a younger version of himself starting off in government. The second is the 10th annual Hunger Games and is easily the strongest part of the movie. It offers the movie's best scenes and most effective sequences that gives the audience the biggest emotional ride. Now, I feel strongly that they should have ended the movie here with a cliffhanger to move us to a second movie, which would have helped with the pacing and perhaps even streamlined the main storyline. Not having read the books, I'm not the best person to suggest any specifics on how this would be done. I would read the books first. But the third act should have been made into a second movie that delved deeper into Snow's transformation. They could have filmed at the same time and produced two movies for $150 million instead of one for $100 million. It's the way Peter Jackson did it with Lord of the Rings. The movie is just too long at 2 hours and 38 minutes, with the third part of the movie by far the weakest in its current form. It didn't feel satisfying. With all these storylines combined into one movie, it felt rushed, as though they filmed and edited the scenes that ultimately took away from what could have been a real emotional ride to watch Snow transform into the diabolical, older version of President Snow. As well, the Snow and Lucy Gray relationship felt underdeveloped, which is another argument for a two-part movie, so each of these elements could have been fully fleshed out and not feel rushed for a resolution. Now, being a screenwriter, I know that it's very difficult to adapt a book with the same tone and emotional feel that the novel writer created. Screenplays have less time and are a visual medium requiring a very different style of storytelling. Not to mention the director's interpretation, the editors, and the studio executives who almost always have final cut. The cinematography was definitely one of the highlights in this movie, and I'd give the CGI a score of adequate. There really isn't anything that I would deem as profusely negative, just that the entire story and its characters would have benefited from a two-movie structure. The total production budget was $100 million, so after adding marketing costs, it'll break even with a box office of around $300 million. Overall, The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is a movie that isn't worth $20 or $30 to watch in theaters, unless you are a true fan of the series, in which case you most likely have a better overall experience with the storyline that felt rushed and incomplete at times to me. Out of a score of 10, I'm giving this movie a 6.5. Let me know what you think. Should it be higher or lower? Let me know in the comments below. If you like what you heard, I thank you for watching and invite you to subscribe and join the Poprageous family. And if you didn't like what you heard, well, I thank you all the same. And we'll see you in our next video.